Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope that your week has been well as we head off into our weekend. It's going to be an incredibly active weekend of severe weather, which does include today and then tomorrow, and then we'll have some severe weather chances for Sunday. We're going to focus in a lot, and the majority of the video will go towards today's severe weather risk and tomorrow's severe weather risk. We will talk about a couple other things also. For example, we'll speak a little bit on the snow for areas of the upper Midwest, kind of inside this severe weather update when we get to that portion of the country. And we will speak a little bit on Sunday. We're not going to include today's forecast because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is in today's forecast, but we really just need to spend a lot of time in detail on this severe weather over the weekend. I'll talk a little bit about winds too, as far as like the southern plains, because you guys are already experiencing some strong winds right now, but this will continue to move east into Texas, Oklahoma, and across the southern plains. We'll speak a little bit on the fire risk also towards the end of the video. So yeah, there's a lot going on. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. I'm praying for all you folks out there in the impact zone that suffer from the storm anxiety. I got you in my prayers. We've been praying for everybody every single night this week, out ahead of this severe weather event that is now here. It's the day of the first big day, tomorrow being the second big day, which I'm really concerned about tomorrow. So with that being said, let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is what we got going on. This is the latest update per the Storm Prediction Center. Just note that this information could change. These outlooks could broaden. They could shrink. They could go up a category. They could go down a category. So just want to get that out there right off the dot. So we have a moderate risk in the red. That's a level 4 out of 5. The next category up is a high risk, level 5 out of 5. We don't see that often, but we do see it sometimes. And we have to watch for an upgrade even for today, later this morning, for this afternoon. Okay, I don't anticipate an upgrade to a high risk for today, but I could see one happening for tomorrow, and we'll speak on that here in the next several minutes. But a moderate risk in this area, an enhanced risk in the orange, level 3 out of 5, a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 in the yellow, and then the dark green, we have a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. So let's zoom into the enhanced risk and moderate risk. The moderate risk includes now Des Moines, over to Davenport, Bloomington, down to St. Louis, Columbia, Jefferson City, Kirksville, Quincy, Missouri, down to the Boot Hill, Missouri, Poplar Bluff, all the way down to Carbondale, Mount Vernon, Effingham, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky, includes all the way down to a very small section of Northwest Tennessee, Dyersburg, all the way down to, I think I already said Poplar Bluff, Missouri, but it does include a section of northeast Arkansas, okay, level 4 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Now let's zoom into the enhanced risk area. This now includes back to Omaha. I think when we made a video last night, you guys were only in the slight risk. You guys now have that enhanced risk. Omaha over to Fort Dodge, Waterloo, up to Dubuque, almost up to Chicago now. In fact, you know, just in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, you guys have an enhanced risk, but don't focus too much on the outlook. I know I talk a lot and really get detailed with this, but I just want you guys to know who's in the highlight zone. But over to sections of like Lafayette, Indiana, Bloomington, it stops just west of Indianapolis, down to Evansville, down to Owensburg. You guys have that enhanced risk. Madisonville, Hopkinsville, Clarksville, Tennessee, stops just west of Nashville. Jackson, Tennessee, you guys are including this enhanced risk, down to Memphis, down to Tupelo, all the way down to Tuscaloosa, stops just shy of Birmingham. This area's big day comes tomorrow. Meridian, down to Jackson, Mississippi, and then we'll kind of stop it in Arkansas here. You know, pretty much takes up all of northeastern Arkansas. Little Rock, places like Little Rock, you know, like Hattiesburg, over to Birmingham, up to Nashville, up to Louisville, up to Chicago, Sioux Falls, Sioux City region, all the way to just shy of Minneapolis. Does include Madison, Rochester. You guys have that slight risk. So what does this mean? Let's talk about the category risk. So the tornado threat has unfortunately increased. So if you tuned into yesterday morning's videos and yesterday evening's videos, you know that we just had a huge 10% risk. Now we have a 15% risk of tornadoes. So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's zoom into this red area. If you live in this red area, which is St. Louis, you're right in the middle of it. That is where we have not only a 15% risk of tornadoes within 25 miles in any given location, you have a 10% risk of that tornado being a strong tornado, EF2 or higher. Okay, in this red area. It's not 15 plus 10 equals 25. It's its own thing. In the yellow area, and I'll zoom into these regions, that's where you pretty much you can say you have a 10% risk of a tornado, but you might as well say you have a 10% risk of a strong tornado within 25 miles in a given location, EF2 or higher. All right, this includes Bloomington, Peoria, Quincy. It includes down to Springfield, Illinois, all the way down to Evansville, all the way down to Clarksville, Tennessee, all of western Tennessee, Memphis, all the way down, including the entire western and northwestern sections of Alabama, Florence. Just pretty much takes up the entire northern half of Mississippi. And then all of northeast, including Jonesboro, Arkansas, all the way up to Jefferson City, Columbia, and Kirksville. 10% risk of a strong tornado. And if you live in this brown area, this is a 5% risk of a tornado. No hatch risk. Hatch risk is the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between it. 5% risk of a tornado. And listen, I know that's a lower risk, but please just remember that you guys aren't exempt from the tornado chances just because you have lower chances. Same thing goes for the green area. 2% risk of a tornado, which does include like Chicago. Okay, and just to kind of zoom out, look at this again. Now, really what was driving this moderate risk at first was the wind threat. And this is huge now. Remember, it was kind of just this section right here. This is the damaging wind threat. And once again, we'll zoom into the highlight area. Des Moines, over to Peoria, Bloomington area, down to St. Louis, Quincy. I know I mentioned I'm being repetitive with this, but I just want you guys to fully understand the message here. Okay, and I'm going to click on this pink area. And hopefully it comes up pretty well. Just remember, and I like to say this when we're getting very detailed in the video, I know this is kind of fuzzy. I can't make it look much better than this, but remember my videos do come up in 1080. So if it's just showing in 720, there's a way to switch it to 1080, and it'll make it a little bit clearer for you. But a 45% chance of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour. It's almost a 50-50 shot of damaging winds within 25 miles of any given location in this pink area. You got a 10% risk of those winds being significant, which is like 65 knots or higher, which is 75 mile per hour winds, getting close to category 1 hurricane status type winds, guys, in this giant pink area. The wind threat, there's going to be so much wind energy with this storm system, it's going to be quite significant. Now, if we look at the outer edges of this, Fort Dodge over to Waterloo, Omaha, okay, down over to Dubuque, this entire red area, okay, this is a 30% chance, same thing, of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour, 10% risk of the 70 to 75 mile per hour winds. And I mean, this goes all the way over to sneaks right into the suburbs of Chicago, all the way down to Evansville, Jackson, Memphis, all these areas, over to Kansas City now. You guys have that 30% risk of winds. Omaha, okay? And then you have the yellow area. That's a 15% risk of winds exceeding that 55 to 60 mile per hour mark. But just note that this hatch risk actually oozes into the yellow area too. So not only do you have the 15% risk of winds, of damaging winds, you also have that 10% risk of significant winds. So just because you're in the yellow area, same thing I mentioned with the tornado threat, doesn't mean you're just out of the woods. Okay, you have a risk for a reason. We can't always hyper-focus on the higher risk areas. Now, the hail threat will be a risk too. We're going to have a chance of wind-driven large hail. So in the red area, it's a 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. St. Louis, once again, right in the middle of this, down to Poplar Bluff, to Boot Hill, Missouri. And you got a 10% risk of significant hail, which the Storm Prediction Center defines as hail in excess of 2 inch in diameter or larger. And then the yellow area, a 15% risk of hail. But if you live in the yellow hatched risk area, which is the black outlined area, not only do you have the 15% risk of hail, but you also have that 10% risk of that hail being significant, 2 inch in diameter or larger. And we'll just kind of zoom out to these areas, and this is what you're looking at. I hope you can see this pretty well, just to zoom in, kind of move this slow throughout this region. Stop it if you need to. And just remember, some of these outlooks could change, especially this outlook for today. All right, so we broke down that. Now let's break it down like this. So if you're immediately thinking, right, when you clicked on this screen, you're like, are you only going to show, these states? I'm going to show the states on the northern edge of this severe weather threat and the southern edge of this severe weather threat. I want to start, though, where there's the highest risk of severe weather, which is the area you're seeing on your screen, Missouri, Illinois, surrounding states. So we're going to start this off. I know it says 1 p.m. This is around lunchtime because this is in Central Time. This is around lunchtime today. Not a whole lot going on. There's some convection. Shower and storm activity began to fire up in western Missouri. As we're starting to get to, say, 3 o'clock this afternoon, we got some storms moving into southwest Iowa. We got this storm starting to develop in eastern areas of Kansas. Okay, and then quickly storms erupt in a Boeing kind of line structure, if you will. This is around 4 p.m. Storms could, explode right on top of Kansas City. A lot of wind energy driving this. So these are going to be fast motion storms, fast moving storms capable of producing all hazards. Wind-driven hail, tornadoes, and certainly damaging winds. And then we go one more hour. This is 5 p.m. This is 6 p.m. Look at these storms moving right through central Missouri. All these storms up here, don't ignore them just because you're further north. And southwest areas of Iowa and all western Iowa, this is starting to get close to Des Moines, Dodge City. These storms could be producing all hazards. I know you're on the northern mode of this severe weather threat, but I'm telling you, a lot of wind energy on the northern side. I want you to note also some convection down here in northeast Arkansas. This is working with a better, what we call, thermodynamic environment, which means it has better surface moisture, and you got enough kick in the atmosphere also, wind energy, to get these storms going. Do they sustain, though? Because the low pressure, surface low, the forcing mechanism to this storm system is way up here to the north. So do we got enough kick in the atmosphere to get it going? I think we do. But we start to get to about 7 p.m., getting closer to sunset, and this line of storms, which I will say could go all the way down into here. And one thing I want to do really quick, if it'll do it for me, you get to see my nice screensaver, is I want to pull up my Epic Pen because I certainly forgot to do it before the video, so I was not prepared. And so I can make sure I'm able to draw on this. So I do want to note that some storms could form all the way down into here. And just because you're not seeing it on this specific run doesn't mean it's not going to happen. All right, but you keep going here. And this is what I'm concerned about. The latest run, okay, let's back it up one more. So it's around 8 p.m. Has this line of storms, yes, blasting through areas of southeastern Iowa. But you see how they're kind of detached now? Like you got this one blob, this blob. That's worrisome because now you have this whipping line of semi-discrete supercells. So to me, that's why they've increased the tornado threat in this area. Now we're looking at maybe fast-moving supercells through eastern Missouri, heading right towards St. Louis. And this is worrisome. This is like 10 p.m. too. This is after the sun sets. So at this point through this entire region right here, okay, especially kind of in this area, all right, now you have what looks like supercells rumbling through the Boot Hill, Missouri, through the southern half of Illinois. And I say southern half because I think this up here will be mainly kind of a wind-driven deal, but can't rule out a tornado. But look, these look like clusters of semi-discrete supercells. Supercells is a rotating thunderstorm. So this latest run kind of has me worried. And I think that's why they increased the tornado risk in this area. And this continues. This is, 11 p.m. This is midnight. These storms still look worrisome as they're sweeping through western Tennessee, western Kentucky. These all could be producing damaging winds and tornadoes. This is midnight, all the way up through western Kentucky. Okay, this is getting into 1 a.m. This is 2 a.m. Man, look at these storms in western Kentucky, the western half of Tennessee. Look at these supercells starting to move into the Nashville area. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, tonight. Okay, but you can't roll it out too. We up here in Indiana, we got some nasty weather moving into Indiana. And then these storms start to head off, and then we get into daybreak tomorrow morning, and then we introduce our next risk of severe weather. So, just to look at some parameters here, here's the updraft Felicity swath. And, boy, does it look alarming for this area right here. Where you see these slashes of color, that's where this run of the HRRR model is indicating a lot of rotation with these thunderstorms. And you see this area down here too. This is for kind of later tonight. This is for this afternoon into this evening. And, the further I would say it gets where I drew that arrow, that gets more later into this evening, into the overnight hours. But, you look at this and you pretty much say, we have a higher tornado threat on our hands. Okay, and you can see the significant tornado parameter too as it begins to spike, especially down here. Higher the number you see on this parameter, the higher the risk for tornadoes. And then, could begin to spike again once we're waking up tomorrow morning. A significant tornado parameter waking up tomorrow morning all the way into southern Indiana, even southern Illinois and western Kentucky, western Tennessee. It's up to an 8, 9, 7 in some areas. And then the last thing we'll look at before we move past this region is the wind gust swath. It's between now and Saturday morning. This entire area that you see on your screen is going to get destructive winds if you get hit by the worst portion of the storm. I don't know, I don't want to call it a derecho or anything like that, but I don't think that's what it's going to be. But listen, this line of storms is going to have a ton of wind energy with it. So destructive winds are possible with this through this entire area. So now, let's talk about the northern section, okay? This is what we'll kind of throw in the portion of maybe if we get a blizzard later tonight, I'm going to throw it in here. So we start to get into, late this afternoon to this evening. It's around 7 p.m. local time out here. We get this band of rain and snow that develops. Cold air catches up, so we could get some very heavy snow starting to develop in like central Dakotas, western Nebraska. But look at the storms right here, kind of surging through the rest of northern Iowa. And this is around 8 p.m., give or take an hour. These storms right here will be producing damaging winds. Even a brief tornado cannot be ruled out. All the way back to Sioux Falls, Sioux City. Don't rule it out. Also in like Omaha, you're going to be working with maxed out what we call kinematics in this area. So you're going to have tons of wind energy through this region, forcing this storm, all this energy north and northeast or wherever it's pivoting around the low pressure. So do not rule out the tornado threat. Now, the further north it gets, the more just steam it runs out of. It runs out of a lot of favorable low-level moisture. But, you're going to get some storms later tonight all the way up into Minneapolis through Rochester, capable of producing severe weather. And then here comes the snow side wrapping through. And, by the time you're waking up tomorrow morning, we're going to have probably some blizzard conditions developing across the extreme eastern counties of the Dakotas, western counties of Minnesota, and even some snow potentially pivoting all the way down to Omaha. And then we'll be done with the snow side of this by tomorrow evening. Now, let's just throw a bone to the snow side of this really fast. There is going to be a corridor of several inches of snow through this region. So go on and expect it, especially right here where the Dakotas and Minnesota kind of come together. Someone could squeeze in 6 to 8 inches of snow. So there's going to be a corridor of that, and then you're going to have strong wind gusts with this too. So, wind gusts are going to, exceed 30 to 50 mile per hour winds at times. So you're going to have blizzard conditions. Now let's speak back on the severe weather side of things. Let's look at the updraft Felicity swath through that line of storms. And, it's not very alarming up through Minnesota, even like northern Iowa. It really drops off significantly, but just note that you can still get some strong winds with this too. Now, if we move a little bit east, severe weather could be a little bit more plentiful up here. And we start to get into like 7 p.m. Here's that line of storms. How well put together will these storms be as they get into, say, southwest Wisconsin, northern areas of Illinois here? The further south you get, the stronger they're going to be for obvious reasons. But I think they'll still be very strong. This is around midnight tonight. These storms are making its way through southwestern and southern areas of Wisconsin. We got this line of storms that are going to blast through Chicago probably around midnight or just after. All the way up to Green Bay, we're going to get some rumbles of thunder. And these storms will start to make it, even into like southwestern lower Michigan by 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow morning. And then, the storm, we could have some strong to severe storms even in Ohio as we're waking up tomorrow morning. But I don't think the storms will be that bad tomorrow morning in Ohio. We'll see. But this line of storms could very well still be put together. So now the tornado threat through this region, it really starts to drop off once you get into northern areas of Illinois. But you still see some swaths through this area. It's very loud, I would say, in western Illinois, but it drops off pretty quick, like through this region, kind of like right into here. Okay, and I think it just runs out of thermodynamic energy. There's just not enough moisture in the atmosphere to really get these storms light to really get this tornadic activity going. So I did just want to show some love for that area. Now the last area we'll wrap up speaking on today's into tonight's severe weather threat is for the western deep south. This is more of a tricky setup because I don't think it needs to be ignored at all. We'll start this off around 3 p.m. Central Time. We already have some storms, so this is new in southern Arkansas, areas of not Illinois, Louisiana. These storms, we'll have to watch. You could get some severe weather out of these. I wouldn't rule it out. But, as we're starting to get into, say, 7 p.m., some storms starting to get going up here in maybe northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, maybe northeast Arkansas. And then they start to become widespread. I mean, look at the time. It says 12 a.m., but this is around 11 p.m. Central Time. We're starting to get some clusters of storms in the northern half of Mississippi. We got some showers, convection down here too, but I don't know if they're doing anything yet. And then we start to get to about 2 o'clock in the morning. You already have what looks like storm development capable of producing all hazards down here, cruising through areas of Mississippi, getting to the Alabama-Mississippi line. And we talked about this earlier when we were breaking down more so the Midwest. But you see these storms in the western half of Tennessee, these could be producing tornadoes. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning, tonight, late tonight. Okay, and then we start to get to, say, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning. We're getting storms already on going through Alabama. I'm telling you, they could be producing already. The atmosphere is already becoming prime. And then we wake up tomorrow morning to already some storms ongoing in central Alabama. Does that, dampen the severe weather threat for tomorrow? I mean, hey, I'm not going to sit here and say no, but what I'm going to show you for Saturday is very alarming. And we'll get to that here in a second. But we already got, waking up tomorrow morning, storms across central Mississippi, central Alabama based off this run. So if you look at the updraft velocity swath through the entire run here, you notice through about midnight tonight, we do need to watch these supercells up here in western Tennessee. And then after midnight all the way to about daybreak tomorrow, it does show some rotating thunderstorms down here in Mississippi and Alabama in this area. But I can already tell you we're going to wake up tomorrow morning with already an environment that favors tornadoes. This is the significant tornado parameter already starting to rise in numbers, and it's already getting prime for severe weather. So not much of a wind threat with this area down here, so I'm not going to show it. All right, so let's get into Saturday's risk. So if you just clicked on this timestamp, we're going to break down Saturday's severe weather threat. We're going to break down the deep south first, then we'll go up. We'll go further north. So let's break down the Storm Prediction Center outlook. I want to reiterate this again. This is probably going to change. I would not be surprised if we get a high risk out of this, if Model Guides continues to show what I'm about to show you. It would show up in pink, but right now, let's zoom in a little bit more. If you live in the red area, that is a moderate risk, level 4 out of 5 risk of severe weather. The orange enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. And then the slight risk is a level 2 out of 5 in the yellow. And then the dark green is a marginal risk. Okay. Who all is included in this moderate risk right now? And I'm telling you, I could see us getting a high risk. I mean, in like this area right into here. I could see it, a high risk. But let's just focus on what we got right now and what we know. Jackson, Mississippi, Meridian, Columbus, down to Macomb, Jackson, Louisiana. A lot of Jacksons in the south. Gulfport, Biloxi, Hattiesburg. I've already said Meridian, but Mobile, Pensacola, over to Dothan, Alabama, Montgomery, up to Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Huntsville, Florence, moderate risk, level 4 out of 5. Okay, who's included in this enhanced risk? New Orleans, you're in this moderate risk too. Baton Rouge. Enhanced risk for Houma, Thibodeau, Lafayette, Monroe, Alexandria, Greenwood, Greenville, Clarksdale, up to Tupelo, Oxford, Jackson, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, all of Middle Tennessee, all the way just south of Bowling Green, enhanced risk of severe weather, Knoxville, Cookeville, Chattanooga, Atlanta, enhanced risk, Macon, down to Albany, Columbus, all the way to Panama City. Okay, enhanced risk. And the slight risk, okay, let's go west to east. All right, so, all the way up to El Dorado, slight risk. Memphis, slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Louisville, Bowling Green, Lexington, Evansville, up to Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, over to Pittsburgh now, Parkersburg, Charleston, Columbus, down to Bristol, Lexington. Some of these areas I'm repeating, so I do apologize. Whole entire Tri-Cities region of Tennessee. And this enhanced risk, I will say, extends into also southwestern North Carolina and extreme northwest South Carolina. But we got the slight risk in Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg area down to Augusta, all the way down to central areas of Georgia. So what is driving this? Let's look at the tornado threat. Let's zoom out. We have a massive 15% risk area. And the next category up as far as the tornado outlook is a 30% risk. And I honestly think we're going to end up getting it. And if we do, it'll get bumped up to, I believe, a high risk. So if you live in this red area, you have a 15% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. But you have a 10% risk of that tornado being strong or significant, which the Storm Prediction Center considers an EF2 or stronger tornado. And that includes everybody in this moderate risk area. Birmingham, Montgomery, down 65 to Mobile. Hattiesburg, Meridian, Jackson, down to New Orleans, Baton Rouge. 15% risk of a tornado, 10% risk of that being a strong tornado. And then in the yellow area, we'll kind of broaden this out. Okay, let's start south to north. Okay, Houma, Thibodeau, Alexandria, Monroe, up into northern areas of Mississippi, includes a very small section of southeast regions of Arkansas, up to Nashville. All of Middle Tennessee, even up to several counties in southern Kentucky, just south of Bowling Green, Chattanooga, Atlanta, Gainesville. You guys, Albany, down here to sections of the panhandle of central panhandle of Florida. This yellow area, that is you basically say it like this. There's a 10% risk of a tornado, yeah, but there's a 10% risk of a strong tornado within 25 miles in a given location. An EF2 tornado. So huge hatched tornado risk. Huge area that has a risk of strong tornadoes. And then, of course, you got the brown area, 5% risk of a tornado, which includes everybody in this region. And a lot of these areas right here, I want to note, like right here in this region, this gets into late tomorrow night. Not really. This isn't this kind of area I just circled. This isn't for really tomorrow during the day. This is for late tomorrow night into really Sunday morning. But you got a 2% risk of a tornado all the way up into central Ohio. Okay. Now, if you look at the wind threat, it's quite significant also, just as significant as it is today. So in this entire pink area, 45% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. You're going to have a raging low-level jet over this region, and a 10% risk of those winds being significant, which is 70 to 75 miles per hour. So these storms, especially the supercells, will be packing damaging wind gusts. And that includes everybody I just mentioned pretty much in the tornado threat, the higher tornado threat. Okay, Pensacola up to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Jackson, etc. And then we zoom out, and this red area includes Atlanta, Chattanooga, Nashville, over to down to Tallahassee, Macon, Monroe, Louisiana, Tupelo. 30% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. 10% risk of those winds exceeding 70 to 75 miles per hour. Okay, and then we zoom out and look at the yellow area. If you live there, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Hail threat. This will be positioned where the highest chance for your supercells will be. So in that red area, 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But in the red hatched risk area with the black outline region going around it, the black dashes, you also have a 10% risk of that hail being significant in size, 2 inch in diameter or larger. That's not 10 plus 30. the significant thing that you see pop up right here, that's its own risk. Has nothing to do with a 30% risk, unless they're the same. Okay, hope that makes sense. But basically Alexandria, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, up to Jackson. Seems like I've said the name Jackson about a million times. Up to Tupelo, all the way up to Nashville, you have a risk of significant hail. All right, and then this entire yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So that's a breakdown of that. Let's talk about the area I am by far the most concerned with. And let's check the time. I don't have my phone near me, so we're just going to keep rolling. This is for Saturday morning. Okay, so we're kind of starting off where we left off with Friday's update. So we're already going to be dealing with some storms, and I'm just going to focus on the HRRR model run. The HRRR model is saying we're going to be dealing with some morning convection, and the hope is that maybe this messes up the atmosphere and it never recovers, and that tomorrow's outbreak that is now likely does not unfold. But we continue to move forward here. These storms move north, so by the time we're at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, we have strong to severe thunderstorms from northern Alabama into middle Tennessee. It even shows some strong to severe storms into northern Georgia. And these could be producing all hazards, but I'm really starting to get concerned about these storms right into here. Watch what happens with these. This is a very alarming run. It's definitely not something you want to see. But let's keep going. And you start to get to about midday. This is lunchtime. Already with these storms in Mississippi, areas of Louisiana, you're starting to get some of those hooks with these storms that you don't like to see. And that just tells us that the atmosphere is prime for a significant severe weather event. Also, what concerns me is this entire environment out ahead of these storms is clearing. Big clearing coming up. So this is 2 o'clock, pretty early in the afternoon. Sometimes it takes till late in the afternoon for these storms to really get going. This is early. This is 2 p.m., just after lunchtime. These storms right here, they all look like supercells, guys. I mean, look how they're kind of hooking like this, and I'm just drawing it away from the storms. Look how they're all hooking. That, if you don't know what a supercell looks like on radar, just Google it, and it'll look just like that. And this is just a short-range model. You can even see the hooks in this convection up here in Tennessee-Alabama line, and even into kind of this messier convection up here in northern Mississippi. If something like this actually happens, all-out tornado outbreak, unfortunately, tomorrow for Mississippi and Alabama. I've been telling you guys for a few days, and this is not to toot my own horn. I try to be a very humble person, and I hope I come off that way. I've been concerned about Saturday since earlier this week. This has always been the big day to me. Today is going to be a big day, but tomorrow is just your classic looking tornado outbreak setup. And it's a dangerous day. So this is around 2 p.m. These supercells capable of producing not just tornadoes, but violent tornadoes are ongoing across pretty much anywhere in Mississippi, especially the southern 2/3 of Mississippi. It looks like down here too in Louisiana. And you keep these going, and then we start to get to about 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Things start to go downhill as these storms begin to get to the Alabama-Mississippi line. But I mean, even up here in Tennessee, this convection could be producing tornadoes. And then what's wild to me is you got a secondary line that forms, because this first line forms so early, the atmosphere could actually recover, and then we have this secondary line of storms. I mean, look at this supercell right here near the Mississippi River and like northeast Louisiana and western Tennessee, just outside of Jackson. And we got all these storms right here. And then we start to get into like 6 p.m. tomorrow night. And I'm telling you, even though it doesn't look, it looks like this line is starting to cluster up. Anything in this area is going to try to produce a strong tornado. You still got this hooking look right into here. The low-level jet is raging. Plenty of wind energy being fed into this. Plenty of Gulf moisture. And this is around 6 p.m. A lot of the heaviest storm activities. It's raining most of the day up in Middle Tennessee. In fact, a flooding threat could be realized up there. But you're still going to get strong to severe storms But man, look at these storms in Alabama, and look at this line that forms in Middle Tennessee. This is around 8 p.m. Sun is setting. And just because the sun is setting, the tornado threat does not drop off. Remember, when these storms form earlier on in Mississippi tomorrow afternoon, if it happens like this, the atmosphere is doing nothing but becoming more unstable in Alabama as the morning convection, shower, and storm activity surges to the north. So this is definitely not a good look for Alabama. And definitely is not a good look for Mississippi. When we start to get to about 9 p.m., this is 10 p.m., all these storms are capable of producing tornadoes. It doesn't look as discreet as it did back in Mississippi earlier in the run, but I'm telling you, these storms are probably producing tornadoes all the way into Georgia tomorrow night. This is like midnight tomorrow night. You got to watch. I got family down here in southern Alabama. These storms, for example, it might not do a whole lot tomorrow. And I'm just kind of throwing a bone to my family. Hey, Paw, Maw, down here in southern areas of Alabama. It looks like the storms really move through probably late tomorrow evening. Like this is around 10 p.m. Storms are kind of moving right on top of you. But, you know, we start to get to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Southeast Alabama begins to get hit hard. This is starting to move right over Atlanta. This is 1 o'clock in the morning. And then the run stops here, and this is all we got to look at. If you kind of look at the NAM and you continue this run, it looks a little different, but kind of the same idea. But the storms are still rumbling through central Georgia, and it's a little bit more delayed. But let's go back to this, and let's look at the updraft Felicity swath. Folks, that is alarming. This is Saturday morning, and then this is through the rest of the run all the way through about the middle of the night tomorrow night. I mean, you see the vibrant colors. This is where the atmosphere is spinning, where the storms are showing up per this run of the HRRR model run. This just basically tells us that these storms are going to be rotating like crazy. Just because they're rotating, that don't mean they're producing a tornado, but you know, this particular run is a violent run. And the significant tornado parameter, guys, I mean, it just does nothing but spike as we get into midday. Tomorrow, it spikes to as high as a 24. Look down here. A 24. I don't even know how high it goes. I'll be honest with you. But the higher the number, the better the ingredients for tornadoes out here. And I mean, it is, I mean, good gracious, it's as high as a 34 down here. So the ingredients for tornadoes, and this is getting into 4 or 5 o'clock, are extremely high through Tennessee. I'm sorry, even up to Tennessee, but Mississippi, Alabama especially. And they continue to be pretty high even into western areas of Georgia late tomorrow night into Sunday morning. And I mean, the winds are going to be significant through this area too, guys. I mean, you look at this. I don't think it'll be as significant as the wind threat today, in my opinion. But we're going to get 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts through this area. And I think we're going to get a big windstorm for areas of Tennessee late tomorrow night that could be quite significant. But just looking at the rest of the run, this is the rest of the southern Appalachian Mountains. And, you know, what's going to happen tomorrow is about midday, you're going to get a lot of shower and storm activity that surges north through Kentucky, through the rest of Tennessee. Some heavy rain begins to fall. The big question is, do we get any kind of clearing? So does this sector kind of rise up through here, and do we get any kind of clearing kind of like through this area maybe? And then the atmosphere could actually become more unstable. It's a big question. Or does it just rain all day and you get a lot of storm activity? But, you know, we shouldn't dismiss the severe weather threat up here either. I mean, I think the ingredients rise all the way into southern Kentucky for severe weather, but it does look more clustered up in nature, meaning there might not be a whole lot of room for some of these storms to breathe and really take advantage fully of the atmosphere out here. But I mean, this is like 7 p.m. We start to get some kind of detachment from the main cluster of storms in eastern Tennessee, the Cumberland Plateau. I mean, you got the main line that looks like it's developing, but you see some of this convection right into here that kind of sneaks into kind of middle to eastern Tennessee. We could get some rain-wrapped tornadoes at sunset tomorrow in this area. And we keep this going, and we could just get a big rain event through this area. I wish it would roll for me. There we go. And we take it all the way to the last frame of the HRRR model, and we got big-time storms moving through North Georgia, starting to move into the upstate of South Carolina. western North Carolina, and we just have a stormy middle of the night in eastern Tennessee. Definitely have a way to get alerts. Storms moving through eastern Kentucky. It just looks like it loses some more steam the further north you get. But, you know, you look at the significant tornado parameter up here. I'm sorry, this is the updraft Felicity swath. And you can tell how it kind of hits a brick wall right here. A tornado threat begins to drop. But the run isn't complete either. It's still kind of rumbling through this area. But, that is some big-time Felicity swaths even through Middle Tennessee, through, you know, Nashville points east. So the tornado threat will be definitely raging through this area. Look at the swath through northern Georgia right here. So the run isn't done, but we'll continue to watch that. But, you know, if you look at the wind threat, I am concerned about winds. This is just between now and the middle of the night tomorrow night. So this run is not complete. But, we have over hurricane force wind gusts up against the spine of the Appalachian Mountains, and very strong winds. 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible through Tennessee, up through Kentucky. Even the National Weather Service is going for some pretty strong winds in this area, just not as crazy as that short range model. And then the last area we'll kind of look at here is Ohio. I think we're going to have a broken area of storms moving through, and this is Ohio and surrounding states like western PA and stuff. We'll get a clearing probably midday tomorrow, and then a big round of storms will surge to the north. These storms could produce strong to severe storms, but, you know, I'm really more concerned about just really heavy rainfall, very strong gusty winds. But if we could trend to more of a kind of discrete mode up here, but I really think this is just going to be a big cluster of rain, storms, and I wouldn't be overly concerned up here, but definitely be weather aware up here. Just don't think we're going to get a significant severe weather event up through Ohio, but we'll continue to watch for sure. And just to kind of finish off portions of this video with a severe weather threat, just to speak on the ingredients. We talked a lot on this already, but if we take it to about tomorrow afternoon, you check kinematics right out the box, okay? Check. All right, you got this 60, 70 knot low-level jet riding right over the deep south. Plenty of low-level energy as far as winds. You got just plenty of southerly flow providing wind energy and directional shear with this setup. Next thing you look at, surface moisture, thermodynamic energy, plenty of Gulf moisture surging through this area. So you got these dew points surging into the 60s, low 70s, and plenty of Gulf moisture through this area. And the next thing you look at is Cape values, storm energy. It's very high in the morning, Saturday morning, but I think it'll continue to uptrend. And this doesn't look very highlighted as far as colors, but 1,500 joules per kilogram mixed layer Cape is extremely high. Even 500 would get the job done, but over 1,500, I'm telling you, rocket fuel. When you compare that with all the other ingredients there, that is plenty of fuel, too much fuel in the atmosphere. So there's a severe weather threat for Sunday too. I'm not going to get detailed on this. There's just a slight risk. The storm system loses some steam, but we do have a slight risk up the eastern seaboard, level 2 out of 5. The winds are going to be significant. I do want to briefly mention this. Southern Plains today, please be aware of what's to come. Fire danger is high, 70, 80, 85 mile per hour wind gusts. And this is the National Weather Service forecast. Look at these strong winds through Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. Please be aware of this windstorm in this area and the extreme fire risk danger in this area. So this is a storyline not being talked about as much, and for obvious reasons, but it should be. So be aware of this. God bless all y'all. Stay safe today, and I should have a video tonight.